Hey everyone, we are live from my backyard where I am smoking a brisket and some ribs. I'm making meats now. Smoking these meats here. Our little meat smoking. It's smoking. So I'm the meat chef. Yeah, someone asked me, do I smoke meat? Smoking meat. Smoking these meats. Smoking meats earlier in the day.
So the tech oligarchs, they care about you. That's why they censor. They want to protect people's feelings. They want everyone to have good self-esteem. They want a utopia. They don't at all want to control information. They're not at all in coordination with our governments. They don't have motivations of gaining power or money. It's all about good things and good feelings, right? And that's why they censor, because they censor the bad people who are doing the bad things to make you have bad feelings, right? Exclusive: Facebook and Instagram to temporarily allow calls for violence against Russians. Meta platforms will allow Facebook and Instagram users in some countries to call for violence against Russians and Russian soldiers in the context of the Ukraine invasion, according to internal emails seen by Reuters on Thursday in a temporary change to its hate speech policy. The social media company is also temporarily allowing posts that call for death to Russian President Vladimir Putin or Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko in countries including Russia, Ukraine, Poland, according to a source of internal emails to its content moderators. Facebook allows war posts urging violence against Russian invaders. So this is the update. As a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that's a Freudian slip, but it's also real because that was the civil war for the 8 years that led up to this, was the government forces of the coup d'etat government puppeted by the West doing a civil war and shelling, bombing, killing people in the eastern part of their country for 7 years. As a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we have temporarily made allowances for forms of political expression that would normally violate our rules, like violent speech, such as death to the Russian invaders. We still won't allow credible calls for violence against Russian civilians, a Meta spokesperson said in a statement. The calls for the leaders' deaths will be allowed unless they contain other targets or have two indicators of credibility, such as the location or method one email said, in a recent change to the company's rules on violence and incitement. Citing the Reuters stories, Russia's embassy in the United States demanded that Washington stop the extremist activities of Meta. Users of Facebook and Instagram did not give the owners of these platforms the right to determine the criteria of truth and pit nations against each other, the embassy said on Twitter in a message that was also shared by their India office. Call me a useful idiot in this sense, but that is one of the most true statements I've heard in a while. Users of Facebook and Instagram did not give the owners of these platforms the right to determine the criteria of truth and pit nations against each other. That's brilliant. If only Russia was a free and open society and that wasn't a hypocritical statement. But at the same time, we think we have a free and open society. And in reality, the owners of Facebook and Instagram, like they are saying, are determining the criteria of truth. And they are pitting nations against each other. You're censoring everything that's coming from Russia affiliated, and at the same time you're now uncensoring people who are calling for violence against Russians and even people who are praising Nazis. You're allowing people to praise Nazis now when you previously had banned people praising those specific Nazi groups that you're now allowing, such as the Azov Battalion. It's very, very interesting. The temporary policy changes on calls for violence to Russian soldiers apply to Armenia, Azerbaijan, Estonia, Georgia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Russia, Slovakia, and Ukraine. In the email recently sent to moderators, Meta highlighted a change in its hate speech policy pertaining both to Russian soldiers and to Russians in the context of the invasion. We are issuing a spirit of the policy allowance to allow T1 violent speech that would otherwise be removed under the hate speech policy when targeting Russian soldiers except prisoners of war, or targeting Russians when it's clear that the context is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Content mentions the invasion, self-defense, etc. They're saying Oh, you could say it as long as the guy isn't captured. You could wish for his death. Ridiculous. We are doing this. I would say they should be able to do whatever they want as long as it's actually not a specific call for an assassination. Like, hey, let's all go to Mulberry Street and kill Humpty Dumpty at 4 p.m. That's bad. We shouldn't do that. Like, that's definitely illegal, and law enforcement should be involved because there's laws to take care of that. We shouldn't be allowing Mark Zuckerberg to determine what the fuck we can and can't see. It's crazy. And it's not really Mark Zuckerberg. It's Mark Zuckerberg and Congress and the deep state. They're all together. The intelligence agencies are balls deep in Silicon Valley. We're doing this because we have observed that in this specific context, Russian soldiers is being used as a proxy for the Russian military. The hate speech policy continues to prohibit attacks on Russians, the email said. Last week, Russia said it was banning Facebook in the country in response to what is said were restrictions of access to Russian media on the platform. Moscow has cracked down on tech companies, including Twitter, which said it is restricted in the country during the invasion of Ukraine, which is called a special operation. Wow, it's almost like Russia's taken a playbook out of George Bush with naming things special operation, or it's not a war. That's very American of them. And like I said, now Russia's responding by banning Facebook because they were in their own country censoring. In Russia, they were censoring anything that's, from the Russian perspective, and they're just flooding their country with only. Can you see how it's a propaganda campaign waged by the United States via social media? So, there's no good parties here, guys. There's no innocents. There's no good guys. There's a lot of bad people doing bad shit. And I'm here to keep pointing the finger at our own leadership because no one in the media does it. They're just going to keep pretending Putin decided to invade Ukraine on a Wednesday morning because he woke up on the wrong side of the bed or some shit. Many major social media platforms have announced new content restrictions around the conflict, including blocking Russian state media RT and Sputnik in the European Union, and have demonstrated carve-outs in some of their policies during the war. Emails also showed that Meta would allow praise of the right-wing Azov Battalion, which is normally prohibited, in a change first reported by The Intercept. Praise of the right-wing Azov Battalion. Why can't you praise right-wingers? It's just political philosophy, right? And then why were they normally prohibiting the praise of the right-wing Azov Battalion? Maybe it's because they're not just right-wing. Maybe it's because they're ultra-nationalist neo-Nazis. That's why they were banned from being praised. Okay? So you see how they can't even give you truth when they try to give you truth? A right-wing Azov Battalion, you could talk about them positively now. So they're trying to give, like, they're telling the whole truth, but they're Nazis. They're fucking Nazis, dude. That's why we weren't allowed to talk to them. That's why you could find tweets and congressional motions and all types of paperwork of some of our leaders pointing out how Azov Battalion were a bunch of freaks in the past 6-7 years. You could find those things. Now no one says stuff like that in the Democratic Party now, but you could find those tweets, just a couple years ago. The Meta spokesperson previously said that the company was, for the time being, making a narrow exception for the praise of the Azov Regiment strictly in the context of defending Ukraine or in their role as part of the Ukraine National Guard. So for the time being, you can make a narrow exception for praising Nazis strictly in the context of their defending their country or to highlight how they're a part of the actual armed forces of that nation. Yet everyone will still deny their existence. Okay. So there you have it again. Silicon Valley, social media, shaping the way you think, shaping the way you perceive the world. You might not even know it. Everyone knows their algorithm feeds them trash, right? But there's a bigger game being played here. It's pretty obvious. But you have to be paying attention. They are allowing us to praise Nazis and call for the death of Russians, and they are censoring anyone who dissents against that in the United States, and they are censoring Russian media. So there's only one opinion you can get. Now, that one opinion has, there's a range inside that, right? There's this accepted range of opinion of debate that you can have, but it's all within the context of American imperialism. How much war are we going to do? Are we going to do this much bombing or this much bombing? Are we going to do this much sanctions or this much sanctions? It's not like detente and war, and there's the spectrum. No, it's like war or a lot of war, and they're shaping your point of view because they're making out one group of people to be absolute heroes with no fault, and they're making out another group of people to be absolute villains with no righteousness. And it's ridiculous, because have you ever met a human that's pure good or pure evil? Have you ever met a group of people that think or act like a monolith and all have the same ideas and thoughts? Like, it doesn't exist anywhere. So whenever you see people being portrayed as those things, you should be skeptical of who you're hearing that from and why they're telling you those things. We are very tribal by nature. So when they're trying to get you to fear the other, you should be very skeptical of what's going on.
Dylan! You son of a bitch! What's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils? Huh?